Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go through the Bmat 2015 Section 2. This exam has 27 questions and has a duration of 30 minutes. This is the Scientific Knowledge and Applications paper of the Bmat. Just a quick reminder, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Also, leave a comment if you want further clarification on any of the explanations that I give during this video. Now, without further ado, let's start answering some of these questions. Question number 1. Which one of the following is not part of a reflex to the stimulus of placing your hand on a hot object? A. Sensory neuron transmits electrical impulse to central nervous system. B. Muscle cells contract. C. Motor neurons transmit electrical impulse to muscle cells. D. Relay neurons pass electrical impulse from sensory to motor neurons. E. Brain transmits electrical impulse to relay neuron. The answer to this question is E. The brain is not involved in a reflex arc or in a reflex nervous response. The pathway for reflex arc is the stimulus, receptor, sensory neuron, relay neuron, motor neuron, effector, and then you have a response. The relay neuron is in your spine. It's not in the brain. So therefore the answer is E, and that's question number 1 completed. Which of the following organic compounds will decolorize bromine water by reacting with it at room temperature? And they've stated 4 compounds below, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, starting with what will cause bromine water to decolorize. A C double bond will cause bromine to decolorize. Therefore, you need to be looking for this type of bond. Alkenes have them, haloalkenes have them. So, let's identify those molecules. So, number 1, ethene is an alkene and it will decolorize bromine water. Number 2 is a polymer. It does not contain any carbon-carbon double bonds. Therefore, that is not going to decolorize bromine water. Number 3, 2-methylpropene will decolorize bromine water because it does contain a carbon-carbon double bond. And number 4, 1-iodoethane will not decolorize bromine water as it doesn't contain a carbon-carbon double bond. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is C. And that's question number 2 completed. Question number 3. The color of the surface of an object has an effect on the rate of absorption and emission of infrared radiation. As a result of this, clothes that are otherwise identical will keep a person warmer when outside in the winter because they are a different color. Which line in the table shows the correct comparison between black and white surfaces? So, let's start with the column that refers to what is the better absorber of infrared, black or white. This is something that you need to know. Black is a better absorber of infrared radiation. This is because it could absorb all the different colors of light, whereas white cannot. So, let's eliminate E, F, G, and H. Now let's move on to the second column. Which color is a better emitter of infrared? This is also something that you should know from GCSE physics. Black is also a better emitter of white than white. So we can eliminate D and we can eliminate C. Now onto the final column. Which is the better colour of clothes to keep a person warm in the winter? Now, this question is trying to trick you. Usually people think that, oh, you should wear dark colours in the winter and light colours in the summer. However, think about it in a scientific sense. In the winter, the amount of infrared radiation being emitted onto the person by the sun is smaller than the amount of infrared radiation being emitted by the person. Basically, the person is emitting more infrared radiation onto their clothes than from an external source. So therefore, you want to try and keep as much infrared radiation as possible. You don't want to lose a lot of infrared radiation to the outside world. In this situation, black would absorb the infrared radiation from the body, radiating some back to the body and some of the radiation away from the body. However, by contrast, the white would reflect infrared radiation back onto the body, therefore reducing the overall loss of infrared radiation and keeping the person warm. So therefore, the colour that you want is white in the winter. So we can eliminate A. The answer is B. And that is question number 3 completed. Question number 4. A bag contains only 8 beads. The beads are identical in all respect except colour. 3 of the beads are black and the other 5 beads are white. A bead is taken at random from the bag and not replaced. A second bead is then taken at random from the bag. What is the probability that both beads are black? So this is a question of probability. So first we need to work out the probability that the first bead that was taken out was black. So at the beginning there are 3 black beads and there's a total of 8 beads. So that is the first probability. Now the second probability of the second bead being black is going to be 2. This is because the black bead that was taken out in the first round of picking was not replaced. And it's going to be over 7. This is because, as mentioned again, the bead that was removed was not replaced. Therefore, the new total is 7. So we have these 2 probabilities. And we want to work out that the probability that both beads are black. So we multiply them together. So that's equal to 6 over 56, which could be simplified down to 3 over 28. Therefore, the answer is B. And that's question number 4 completed. Question number 5. Which row identifies what is occurring during anaerobic respiration in animal cells? So immediately you should be going towards the middle column. Is oxygen used in anaerobic respiration? In anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not used. Oxygen is only used in aerobic respiration. So we could get rid of C, we could get rid of D, we could get rid of G, and we could get rid of H. Now let's go on to the first column. Is carbon dioxide formed in anaerobic respiration? Carbon dioxide is not formed in anaerobic respiration in animal cells. Instead of CO2 and water being formed in anaerobic respiration, lactic acid is formed. So we could get rid of E, we could get rid of F. And in regards to the last column, as I mentioned before, water is not formed during anaerobic respiration, lactic acid is formed, so we could get rid of B. And therefore, the correct answer to this question is A. And that's question number 5 completed. Question number 6. The diagram shows the suggested changes in energy labelled as A, B, C, D, and E during a chemical change from reactants to products. Which value is the correct energy change for the reverse reaction? So straight away, you should be able to notice that the energy change from reactant to product is shown as A. And we want the energy change of the reverse reaction. So we want this arrow pointing down instead of up. So the magnitude of arrow A is correct, but we want it in the opposite direction. So what do? We make that negative A. And therefore the correct answer to this question is minus A. And the answer to this question is A. That is question number 6 completed. Question number 7. A 100% efficient step-down transformer decreases the voltage of an alternating current electricity supply. What effect does this step-down transformer have on the mean power transferred and the alternating current delivered? So immediately you should look at the bit that says a 100% efficient step-down transformer. Therefore, there is going to be no energy lost during the process of the voltage being decreased. So therefore, the power is going to remain the same. It does not change. So we can get rid of A, B, E, and F. Now that we've done that, let's focus on the current. We now need to look at the different variables mentioned in the question. They talk about power, they talk about voltage, and they talk about current. Using these 3 variables, can you think of a relevant physics equation? I can. It's known as P equals IV, where P is power, I is current, V is voltage. Now, we know that the power will remain the same, but the voltage is going to decrease. Therefore, the current has to increase in order for the power to be the same after the step-down transformer has done its stepping down of the voltage. So therefore, C is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is D. And that's question number 7 completed. Question number 8. PQR is an isosceles triangle in which PQ is equal to PR, which is equal to 6 centimeters, and QR is equal to 8 centimeters. What is the value of the tangent of the angle PQR? Step number 1 for this question is to draw a triangle. Let's do exactly that. Bang. Doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to translate the message. There's your triangle, where this is equal to P, this is equal to Q, and this is equal to R. This is equal to 6, this is equal to 6, this is equal to 8. And they want to work out this angle over here. Now, how will we do this? My suggestion would be is to split this triangle in half. So this is a right angle, and then you work out what this side length is. Then you input this value, well, the values that you've calculated into SOHCAHTOA. That should give you the answer to your question. So let's do exactly that. So I'm going to redraw the triangle, the half triangle. So we know that from the original triangle, this hypotenuse is going to be equal to 6. And we know this adjacent distance is going to be 4, and the opposite is unknown. Since this is a right angle triangle, we could use Pythagoras' theorem to work out what x is. So x squared plus 4 squared is equal to 6 squared. Now let's solve for x. X squared is equal to 6 squared minus 4 squared, which is equal to 20. So therefore x is equal to root 20, which is equal to, you guessed it, 2 root 5. So we now know what x is. And the question was asking for us to work out the tangent of P, Q, and R. And since QR, and let's call this midpoint M, and QM are parallel, and they form the same angles with Q, we could use this triangle that I have over here to work out what the tangent of the angle PQR is going to be. So now I'm going to use SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA to identify what values I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using the TOA part of this acronym, where the tangent is equal to the opposite over the adjacent, and the opposite in this case is x, which is equal to 2 over 5, and the adjacent is going to be the denominator, which is 4. Simplify that down to equal root 5 over 2. That is the answer to our question. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is E. That is question number 8 completed. Question number 9. The diagram shows the results of a breeding experiment using a homozygous black mouse and a white mouse. Mouse 1 was then allowed to mate with mouse 2. Using C for the dominant allele for the coat colour and little c for the recessive allele, which answer below correctly identifies the details of their offspring? And they've given us a table here to choose what is the correct answer. So step number 1 is to work out the genotype of these offspring, the siblings of 2. How do we do that? We identified the genotype first of mouse number 1 and the other parent, and we know that mouse number 1 is homozygous, and we know the black colour is dominant based off the offspring and the information given in the question. So we know, I'm going to start partially filling in a Punnett square, that number 1 is big C, and we could therefore assume that being white or a white mouse is recessive, so we're going to give that little c. So we have as offspring big C, little c, big C, little c, big C, little c, big C, little c. Therefore, all the offspring of 1 and the white mouse is heterozygous, and therefore number 2 is heterozygous. Now, let's draw the Punnett square between 1 and number 2. So we know the genotype of 1 is big C, and we know the genotype of 2 is big C, little c. So big C, little c. And let's fill out this Punnett square. So we've got big C. We've got big C, little c. And looking at this, we know the genotype of their offspring is going to be 50% homozygous, 50% heterozygous. And we also know the phenotype of the offspring is going to be all black, since they all contain big C, and big C is the dominant color for black. So let's look at our table. The percentage that is heterozygous will be 50%. So we could do some quick eliminations. We know that the mice are only going to be black. What do you know? The correct answer is D. And just to confirm the last column, the genotype is going to be homozygous and heterozygous. And that is question number 9 completed. Question number 10. Which of the following statements about the alkali metal rubidium is correct? So let's work through each of these statements. Myself personally, I probably wouldn't have known all of these when I was sitting my Bmat. So some quick eliminations can help to get the right answer so you don't waste a lot of time. So, statement A, rubidium and chlorine are formed when an aqueous solution of rubidium chloride is electrolyzed. That is incorrect, because for electrolysis to occur between rubidium chloride, it is molten, is not aqueous. Therefore, A is incorrect. Statement B, rubidium has a higher melting and boiling points than sodium. That is incorrect, because sodium has a higher melting point than rubidium. So, no. Statement C, rubidium reacts more slowly with water than sodium, forming hydrogen gas. That is incorrect, because rubidium is more reactive than sodium, so it would react with water faster. And you should know this because alkali metals are group 1 metals, and as you go down the group, the reactivity increases. D, rubidium is stored under oil. That is true. This is because it's very reactive. And this is something that you could sort of use your common sense with. The reason why I say this is because you know that sodium is stored in air, but potassium is more reactive than sodium and is stored under oil. And rubidium is more reactive than potassium, so it's definitely stored under oil. And I'll go through the last one for convenience sake. Rubidium sulfate has a formula of RbSO4. That is incorrect. It will have a chemical formula of Rb2SO4. Correct answer to this question is 10, and that's question number 10 completed. Question number 11. Below are 3 statements about radioactivity or nuclear energy. Statement 1, neutrons emitted in nuclear fission can cause further fission. Statement 2, the half-life of a radioactive substance is half the time taken for all of its nuclei to decay. Statement 3, the process that produces heat and light in the sun is called nuclear fission. Which of these statements is/are correct? So let's go to statement number 1. Statement number 1 is correct. This is because nuclear fission is a chain reaction. When the initial neutron is fired into the radioactive isotope, causes the atom to split, and this releases more neutrons, and that helps to split more and more atoms. So therefore 1 is correct. Statement number 2. This is a misleading question. Half-life of a radioactive substance is not half the time it takes for all of its nuclei to decay. The half-life of a radio substance is actually the time it takes for half of its nuclei to decay. It's a clever little play on words, so that is incorrect. And statement number 3, the process that produces heat and light in the sun is nuclear fission. That is incorrect. It is actually fusion. Nuclear fusion occurs in the sun, and you could deduce this because, as you're probably aware, the sun is mainly made up of hydrogen, helium, and other really light elements, and fission mainly uses very heavy radioactive elements such as uranium. So, looking at these statements, I could determine that only statement number 1 is true, and therefore the answer to this question is A. That is question number 11 completed. Question number 12. Given that A is equal to 3 over 5 plus x, B is equal to 3 plus x over 5, and C is equal to 3 plus x over 5 plus x, where x is a whole number greater than 0, which of the following is true? So, some people will work out this question by multiplying all the denominators by 5, open bracket, 5 plus x, close bracket, to make everything a non-fraction, and then work it out like that. Realistically, in the exam, you do not have enough time, and since I know that the rule that they're stating is going to be true for all numbers greater than 0, I'm simply just going to input a value greater than 1 into the fraction and then order them in the order of size, and then I'll know what is bigger than what. So I'm going to make x equal 1, so therefore A is equal to 3 over 5 plus 1, which is equal to 3 over 6. B is equal to 3 plus 1 over 5, which is 4 over 5. And C is equal to 3 plus 1 over 5 plus 1, which is equal to 4 over 6. So I'm going to simplify these fractions. So A is equal to half, B is equal to 4/5, which is already simplified. C is equal to 2/3. Therefore, I know that B is the smallest. A is the smallest, B is the largest, and C is in the middle of them. Therefore, B is the correct answer to the question. And that is question number 12 completed. Question number 13. A human consumes the same amount and type of food and drink on 2 consecutive days. He also does the same activities on both days. However, one of the days is hot and the other is cold. Which of the following correctly shows the mass of 2 substances found in the urine of this human on the hot day compared with the cold day? So this question is assessing your knowledge of homeostasis, which is a topic in biology, GCSE and A-level biology. So I'm going to first start with the water aspect of the urine, as that's the easier part. As you're probably aware, on a hot day, there's going to be more water loss. There's going to be more opportunities for water loss, so the body wants to retain as much water as it possibly can. So, therefore, there's going to be less water in the urine. So we can eliminate D, we can eliminate E, we can eliminate F, we can eliminate G, we can eliminate H. Now, let's focus on the urea aspect of this question. So, at the beginning, I read about how the person ate the same amount and type of food and drink on the 2 days. So therefore, the body will produce the same amount of waste products on both days, including urea. Therefore, the same amount of urea will be produced on each day. So therefore, the correct answer to this question is B. Question number 14. Cycloalkanes are alkane compounds that are in a ring shape. Some examples of cycloalkanes are given below. Which statement about these compounds is correct? So you have A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are your statements. And now let's determine which ones are true and which ones are false. So, statement A, they have a general formula of CnH2n plus 2. That is incorrect. The actual general formula is CnH2n, and the paper's written quite nicely. The writers were quite nice because they gave you examples that you could compare this against, this formula, general formula, and clearly that formula is incorrect. B, they react rapidly with bromine water. That is also incorrect. As you could see from the examples given, there are no double bonds, carbon-carbon double bonds. So therefore, B is incorrect. C, they are saturated compounds. That is true. As you can see from the diagram above, there are only single bonds. D, they burn in excess oxygen to form CO2 and H2, hydrogen gas. This is incorrect because when they burn, they form CO2 and water, not hydrogen gas. E, they are not members of a homologous series. That is incorrect because they are members of their own family known as cycloalkanes. That was sort of an easy one to get. And F, they are giant covalent compounds. That is incorrect. It's got similar properties to that of alkanes. Alkanes are giant covalent compounds, so neither is cycloalkanes. And as you probably know, C is the correct answer to this question. That is question number 14, completed. The diagram shows the only 4 forces acting on a model aircraft of mass 2 kg whilst flying. There's a diagram with all the forces below it. Which line in the table states the horizontal and vertical accelerations of the aircraft at this instant? So, step number 1 will be to work out what equation we're going to be using for this question. It's going to be F equals ma, and we want to work out acceleration, so we could rearrange to get A is equal to F divided by m. Step number 2 is now working out the overall horizontal force and the overall vertical force. So for the horizontal force is going to be 50 newtons minus 40 newtons, which is going to be 10 newtons. And for the vertical force is going to be 25 newtons minus 20 newtons, which is going to be 5 newtons. And step number 3 is going to be inputting these calculated forces and the mass of this model plane into the equation that we formulated in step 1 to get our accelerations. So let's do exactly that. So for the horizontal acceleration, it's going to be 10 over 2, which is equal to 5. And for the vertical acceleration, it's going to be 5 over 2, which is equal to 2.5. So now we know our answers for the horizontal acceleration and vertical acceleration. So the correct answer to this question is A. That is question number 15 completed. Question number 16. A city football club collected money for charity at all of its matches for a year. At the end of the year, the total collected was divided among 3 charities, A, B, and C, in the ratio of 1 to 2/3 to 4/5. Charity C received £3,000. What was the total amount collected for charity during the year? So step number 1 is to calculate the total of this ratio. So 1 plus 2/3 plus 4/5 is going to be equal to 37 over 15. How I did that is by converting everything into a common denominator of 15 and then adding all the numerators together. I didn't go into detail over here because I assume everyone doing this exam will be able to do something as basic as that. So now we have the total of the ratio. Step number 2 is to now work out what 1 is equal to in this ratio. Let me further elaborate on that. What I mean by that is that Charity C received 4/5 of the total amount. So I want to first work out what 1 is. So 3,000 divided by 4/5 is equal to 3,750. And now I'm going to multiply that 3,750 by 37/15. So 3750 times by 37/15. This is, you could do this by bunch cancelling. I'm not going to show it. It's going to be equal to 9,250. Therefore, that's the correct answer to the question. The answer to this question is E. That is question number 16 completed. Question number 17. The diagram shows part of the carbon cycle. There's a nice diagram of it. Which row shows the numbered processes that use digestive or respiratory enzymes? So, for animals to acquire the carbon in plants, they require the action of digestive enzymes. The decomposition of animals by decomposers to acquire the carbon from animals also requires digestive enzymes. Respiratory enzymes are required to convert carbon in decomposers into carbon dioxide, but the conversion of carbon dioxide into carbon in plants does not require any respiratory enzymes. This is because plants photosynthesize and uses photosynthetic enzymes. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is H, and that is question number 17 completed. Question number 18. The reaction between the gases S and T occur according to the following equation. S plus 2T goes to W plus 2X. And the enthalpy change is 12 kilojoules per mole. Which statement about this reaction is correct? And they've given 5 statements to evaluate, so let's go through it. Statement A, a solid catalyst would slow down the rate of reaction. That is completely untrue. It would speed up the rate by reducing the activation energy. B, if the chemical T was a powder, the reaction would be faster. No, that is incorrect. It's in its best state for the reaction. It's in a gas. Solids do not react faster than gases. Gases react faster than solids generally because they have a higher surface area to volume ratio. Therefore, more collisions can take place and the probability of a successful collision occurring increases. C, a high activation energy would give a slower rate than a lower activation energy. This is true. D, increasing the temperature would decrease the rate. That is untrue because we have an exothermic reaction occurring here. E, the rate of reaction can be monitored by measuring the change in gas volume. That's incorrect because we have 3 moles of reactants and we have 3 moles of product. Therefore, if everything's in gaseous state, which it is, in the reactants and the product, there will be no net change in the gas. Therefore, as you probably already know, the correct answer to this question is C. That is question number 18 completed. Question number 19. Part of a radioactivity decay series is represented below. It involves the change of nucleus M into nucleus N by the emission of a beta particle, followed by a further change to a nucleus Q by the emission of an alpha particle. Four quantities V, W, X and Y are shown. There's the reaction, the radioactive decay reaction or series. What are the expressions for X and Y? So, okay, first things first, you need to write down what an alpha and beta particle is. What's the notation? So an alpha particle is 4, 2, so it loses that, and then beta is equal to 0 minus 1. If you know these two, you'll be able to answer this question very easily, like a maths problem. So let's start with X. So in order to get X, we start with W, and a beta particle is emitted. So therefore we have plus 1. It's not minus 1 because technically you're gaining, not losing. So therefore you could eliminate A, B, C, D, E. Now for working out Y, you start off with V, you gain nothing from the beta particle. Now from the alpha particle, minus 4. Therefore, Y is equal to V minus 4. So we could eliminate F and H. And therefore, the correct answer to this question is G. That is question number 19 completed. Question number 20. A class of N people takes a spelling test. Their mean score for the test is M. Another pupil takes the test and scores N. When this pupil's result is included with the other results, it is found that the mean has decreased by 2. Which equation below gives the correct expression for N in terms of M? This is quite a hard question, but step one that I would do is just write an expression that involves all the terms in this question that relates to what is being said. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And M is equal to N plus 1 M minus 2 minus N. And hopefully this makes sense to you. If you want more clarification, leave in the comments and I'll write a full detailed explanation. I just don't want to make this video really long because it will take a while to explain if you don't understand. And now you literally just rearrange to get N on the left hand side and the other variables on the right hand side. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do Nm is equal to Nm plus M minus 2N minus 2 minus N. And I'm going to bring now all the N's on the left hand side. These two NMs will cancel each other. We have a minus 3N on the right hand side. Bring that to the left hand side. That is 3N is equal to M minus 2. Divide both sides by 3. You get M is 2 so over 3. And the correct answer to this question is therefore D. That's question number 20 completed. Question number 21. Mitochondria are the site of aerobic respiration in animal cells. A theory of evolution of animal cells states that these mitochondria may once have been aerobic bacteria that were taken into the cytoplasm of a cell in an early ancestor of animals, allowing the cell to gain the ability to respire using oxygen. Assuming this theory is correct, which of the following statements are true of these aerobic bacteria and human white blood cells. And they've given us 4 statements, and I'm going to go through them and state which ones are true and false. So statement number 1, the structure of their DNA will be a double helix. That is true, because in both it's a double-stranded double helix, and DNA is double-stranded. 2, they both possess a cell wall. That is incorrect, because white blood cells do not possess a cell wall. Statement number 3, they would both possess a nucleus. That's incorrect, because fair enough, a white blood cell has a nucleus, but in aerobic bacteria, there is no nucleus. The DNA is in the cytosol, it's in the cytoplasm. And statement number 4, they both possess a cell membrane. That is true. And therefore, the correct answer to this question is A. That's question number 21 completed. Question number 22. Which of the following have the same electron arrangement? And they've given us 6 atoms/ions to choose from. So, this question is essentially asking us how many electrons does each of these species have, and you look at the atomic number, which is the bottom number, and that is the number of electrons that element's atom would have. You see if it's charged or uncharged. If it's positively charged, you remove a certain number of electrons from the atomic number. If it's negatively charged, then you add a certain number of electrons depending on the size of the charge. So chlorine has 18 electrons because it has an atomic number of 17, negative charge +1. This positive chlorine has 16 because 17 has a positive charge, -1. Argon 18, lovely jubbly, it's an atom, no need to worry about charges. Positive potassium has 18 because it has an atomic number of 19, -1, that goes to 18. Calcium, 1 plus calcium has 19 because it has an atomic number of 20, has a positive charge, so you -1, that goes to 19. And a 1 minus potassium, that goes to 20 because 19 negative charge +1 is equal to 20. Therefore, K plus, argon, and Cl minus all have same electron configuration. Therefore, C is the correct answer. And that's question number 22 completed. Question number 23. A car is being driven at 20 meters per second when the driver sees a child run onto the road. The driver's usual reaction time is 0.7 seconds, but this is doubled because the driver is tired. Once the driver applies the brakes, the car is brought uniformly to rest in a further 3.3 seconds. What's the total distance travelled by the car between when the driver first sees the child and to when the car stops? So, we know that the car is travelling at 20 meters per second, and we know that the driver's reaction time has doubled because they're tired, so it's going to be 2 times 0.7, which is equal to 1.4. So, the distance travelled in 1.4 seconds is going to be 1.4 times by 20, which is equal to 28 meters. Now, when the driver applies the brakes, that takes 3.3 seconds for the car to stop. So we have 3.3 seconds. And we know that the driver was travelling at 20 meters per second. However, the driver was decreasing their speed to 0. So let's assume that this could be drawn as a time velocity graph. So this is the reaction time, the time it takes for the driver to actually realise that there's a child on the road. and then this is when the driver is applying the brakes. So between this line and this line, that is 3.3 seconds. So it's a triangle, and the base is 3.3 seconds, and the height is 20 meters per second. And we want to work out the area of this triangle. And the formula of calculating the area of a triangle is a half base times height. So when you times this by 0.5, which makes this equal to 33 meters. And now we add 28 and 33 together. So 28 plus 33, that goes to 61. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is D. That's question number 23 completed. Question number 24. Simplify 2x plus 3 over 2x minus 3 plus 2x minus 3 over 2x plus 3 minus 2. I thought I'd explain this question by writing all the working out at first, and then just walking you through it. Saves you a lot of time, which is quite important because you have a lot of revising to do. So, line number 1 is me just getting a common denominator and putting everything all as one fraction. Didn't do any simplification there at all. Line number 2 is me expanding the numerator to get each individual term. And line number 3 is me just simplifying the numerator, and that's the correct answer. Therefore, the correct answer to 24 is D, and that's question number 24 completed. Question number 25. The sex of a species of fruit fly is determined by the number of X chromosomes relative to the number of non-sex chromosomes. A. In a cell. This is called the X to A ratio. A fruit fly will be made male if X to A is equal to 0.5 to 1 and female if X to A is 1 to 1. The Y chromosome contains genes necessary for making sperm. Which row of the table correctly shows the sex of 5 fruit flies with different numbers of these chromosomes? So, starting with column number 1, XAA, that it gives a ratio of 0.5 to 1, therefore that particular fruit fly is going to be male. So we could do some eliminations. Now, moving on to column number 2, XYAA has a X to A ratio of 0.5 to 1. Therefore, that particular fruit fly is also going to be male. So we could eliminate that. Column number 3, XXAA has a X to A ratio of 1 to 1. Therefore, that particular fruit fly is going to be female. Can't do any eliminations there. Column number 4, XXYAA, that particular fruit fly has an X to A ratio of 1 to 1, therefore will be female. Can't do any eliminations there. And finally, we have the final column, XXYYAA, that has a X to A ratio of 1 to 1, therefore it's going to be female. And we could eliminate G. Therefore, the answer to this question is H, and that's question number 25 completed. Question number 26. The equation of the complete combustion of methane is as follows. If 1.6 grams of methane were completely burned in 8 grams of oxygen to produce 4.4 grams of carbon dioxide, what mass of oxygen is left unreacted? Step 1. Work out the moles of CO2 produced in this reaction. So moles is equal to the mass over the molecular weight. The molecular weight of CO2 is 44 because 12 plus 16 plus 16 is 44. So now let's work out the moles. So it's 4.4 divided by 44, which is equal to 0.1. Now that we know the moles of CO2 produced in this reaction, let's try and work out the amount of oxygen needed to produce 0.1 moles of CO2. We know that the molar ratio between oxygen to carbon dioxide is 2:1. Therefore, the number of moles needed to produce 0.1 moles of CO2 is 0.1 times by 2, which is equal to 0.2 moles. Now that we know the number of moles of oxygen, let's work out the mass of oxygen. So we know the formula moles is equal to mass over mR. Now we want the mass, so let's rearrange this equation. Mass is equal to moles times molecular weight. So 0.2 times by 32, which is the molecular weight of oxygen, since 16 plus 16 is 32, which is equal to 6.4. Now we want to work out what the mass of oxygen is left unreacted. So we're going to do 8 minus 6.4, which is equal to 1.6. And therefore the correct answer to this question is B. That's question number 26 completed. Question number 27. Consider the following three statements. Number 1. Mass of 4 kg requires a resultant force of 5 newtons to act on it in order to accelerate at 1.25 meters per second squared. 2. A wave of frequency 4 Hz travelling at a speed of 5 meters per second has a wavelength of 1.25 meters. 3. A voltage of 4 volts applied across 0.5 resistor causes a current of 1.25 amps to flow. Which statement or statements is or are true? So, step number 1 is figure out what equation is relevant to each of these statements. So statement number 1 uses F equals ma, where force is equal to mass times acceleration. Statement number 2 uses the formula V is equal to frequency times by wavelength. So velocity is equal to frequency times wavelength. Statement number 3 is using the equation V equals IR, where V is voltage, which is equal to the resistance times the current. So let's look at statement number 1. Let's input all of these values into the equation. So mass is 5. The mass is 4 times by 1.25. That is equal to 5. So statement number 1 is correct. Let's input the values into statement number 2. Well, let's input the values from the equation into the formula below. So wavelength of a frequency of 4, multiply the wavelength by 1.25 is equal to 5 meters per second. That is also true. Statement number 3, a voltage of 4 volts applied across a 5 ohm resistor causes a current of 1.25 amps of flow. That is incorrect because I'll show you. 5 times by 1.25 is equal to 6.25, and 6.25 would be the voltage, not 4. So therefore statements 1 and 2 is correct, and the correct answer to this question is D. That is question number 27 completed. Thank you very much for watching my complete walkthrough of this exam paper. I do try and put a lot of effort and time into this. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Please leave comments if you would like further explanations on any of the questions, or if you have any ideas or any particular requests on what content I should make next. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you watching my next video.